Infidelity is a major medical condition that affects many married couples and individuals in Zimbabwe. And as such, it is also associated with several negative societal issues that people bring about: stigma, rejection, verbal and physical abuse, as well as marital conflict. Studies reveal that infidelity can be caused by both social and biological factors, which have seen many childless couples seeking treatment from spiritualists, traditional healers, and of course, the medical fraternity. Welcome to Issues-Pane Nyaya. My name is Sokostina, and with Siposihle Ndlovu on sign language. Let's take a look at what happened on Issues-Pane Nyaya last week.
15 September 2014 mbeleko yakaramba.
Okay.
Tiri mukati memba. Takamboedza kumboendawo kumaprofita kuzin'anga zvakaramba. Asi mumusha mandakaroorwa hapana achandida kana achandona semunhu. Noti vese vanenge vachiti uri ngomwa. Saka dzokera kumusha kwenyu. Dai uri munhu ane kumusha kana kuti ane hama waidzokera musha kwenyu panoti ugare musha medu usiri kubara. Zvinhu izvozvo zvaindidya mwoyo ndichingoti rega ndishingirire mumba mangu mwana chipo chinobva kuna Mwari. Ndaedza nepese pandaigonawo kuti ndishande ndinamatewo kuti mwana auye, asi zvakaramba. Kuzosvika sekuru wemurume nemukoma wemurume nabamunini vauya vakabuditsa hembe dzangu nobva vatora maziscreen kwakuloka madoors kwakutaticha basa remubati wemaoko regasi chifila gasi nesemende kwakukiya mashopu aya kwakutogwa nehama dzake kwakutiza kuenda kuethic leave. Akanga kuti iwe ndione dambudziko rotuseta vana noti nini vana vangu kwaindinavo muchiuno mangu.
I'll tell you this, the first 8 flamboyant years of my marriage, from the inside, there's always that within the family. There came a time where I would say, no, I no longer want to visit Kumusha, because each time you would go there, because always it's the woman who has a problem, right? You would get there, we were ready to eat, you know, you have rituals that are prepared for you, and Mr. Sunny doesn't even bother to be part of it. So you find it became stressful, and there was a lot of pressure. And you find even with your partner, the disconnection will start. So eventually the fights kept on going and going and going until a time we had to say, no, why don't we just take a breather? Why don't we just let it go? Because the last 2 years were hectic, I tell you. It was tears and fights, tears and fights.
Are you still with your husband at the moment?
Yeah, there's a gap, my sister.
You are together, but you're not together?
No, we're signing off.
Okay, you are getting a divorce?
Yes.
Okay.
I got married in 2009. Then I spent almost 3 years, up to 2012, without a child, and associated with the 2 miscarriages in that period. And takangozotiwo nekungonamatawo both toenda kuchurch. We had our first born in 2013. Papa nema challenges because in any family yedu, I am the only boy.
Okay.
With the 6 girls. And the partner baba saka find kuti pressure inenge iriko from sisters namai chichichi. Zvika atina contraceptive method iri kushanda.
Okay.
And I just believe in the fullness of time, by the grace of God,
yeah, okay. I was laughing with Enesia of saying infidelity and infertility are 2 different things. But Dr. Enesia Ziki, welcome back to Issues-Pane Nyaya, and we are so excited to have you here at ZTN. And I know you were listening to this conversation about women and men all failing to have children. And being a gynecologist, what causes this phenomenon?
Okay, first I'd like to maybe define what it is
Okay.
when we say there's a problem. So we only We like to call it subfertility because only when a woman has been declined as totally infertile, then we can label as that. It brings a sort of stigma when we say infertile. And most of these women, remember, they will fall pregnant at some point. So we call it subfertility. It's a more acceptable term in the medical field. But we only define this infertility or subfertility when a woman has tried to conceive for more than 1 year with regular intercourse and without using contraception. And so for women who are below 35, we only start to investigate after a year. And for those below 35, we start to investigate much earlier. So there are many causes of subfertility, and the commonest, remember, there can be male factors leading to subfertility or female factors. So in 30 to 40% of the times, it's the woman who has a problem. In about 30%, it's the man who has issues. And in almost 30% again, it's both partners that have problems. So the commonest reasons why people are fertility issues are, one, it can be lack of sperm in the man. The man might not be producing sperm for various reasons. It can be due to tubal blockage.
A lot of men be curious what are the various reasons these could be, and I know you might have some of these information. Would you give us what are some of these reasons?
Some of them, for example, if men have suffered from mumps as an adult, if men have suffered trauma to their testes, to their testicles, they can be infertile. Or if men have been exposed to very high temperatures, to radiation or some form of chemotherapy, they can produce no sperm, and this can lead to no sperm production in men. And then in women, the commonest causes would be blockage of the tubes. It could also be due to a woman having no period, where the period doesn't come for various issues. It could be because the woman has got thyroid problems, or the woman is producing milk, or the woman has got a condition called polycystic ovaries, where ovulation doesn't take place, so a woman fails to fall pregnant. Then there are other complicated matters, like conditions called endometriosis, where a woman has got abnormal tissue inside the abdomen that makes it unfavorable for her to fall pregnant. So there are many causes, and so doctors have to really take time to find out from the woman or the man. And ideally, when we investigate subfertility, both partners should be available so that we provide comprehensive attention. So it takes a lot of skill to actually ask for and rule out the various causes of subfertility. There are many, and treatment has to be sort of tailored to what the cause is.
Well, Haji, welcome back. Hajinesa Kwanya is back with us from a Family of Hope, and we're excited to have you. We've learned a new word. It's called subfertility. We'll never be caught on the wrong side of the law. So you were with us last week, and hearing all this, and you personally having gone through this experience, and of course we also had Rudo last week, which is important for the viewers to know. How is Rudo? Because last week we know she had almost threatened to take her life. Did you have any contact with her? What is going on with her?
Right, so after a bit of a battle, I finally managed to get through to her on Tuesday evening, and we then set up an appointment with her to go see a GP. So you'll find that with a number of people, they actually don't have access to even primary care. So we set up an appointment for her. She went to see the doctor yesterday, and the doctor has written a number of tests that he wants done, and also a pelvic scan, so they can image the...
in other words, half of what she said.
Half of what Dr. Ziki said.
Or 3/4 or all of it is what
the investigations that the gynaes would do. So we're just waiting to get the costs back on that, and then we'll pay, and hopefully Rudo can have some answers. And
did you get answers for yourself? Did you get all these rigorous tests? Did you experience... what happened with your experience?
So I lost 3 pregnancies before 12 weeks, and then I lost one at 23 weeks. When I lost the first one, it's then that I learned I actually had a fibroid. But at the time, we didn't think it was in a position where it would threaten a pregnancy. So I went ahead, I fell pregnant again. I lost that at, I think, between 4 and 6 weeks. But I ended up having to go to theatre. And when the doctors opened up, they realized this thing has grown out of proportion. So I had to go for investigations and MRI scan to actually pinpoint where it was located. But at the time, I was very hesitant to go the surgical route because I had other health challenges that had taken me into theatre. So I was like, Imbomirai. And I think probably that was the contributing factor. Though I haven't tried to fall pregnant now that the fibroid has been removed. So hopefully if
You haven't tried?
No.
How long ago was that when that happened?
I had the fibroid removed last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you going to try and get pregnant?
I think so. I'm on the fence because loss is also very traumatic.
Right.
And you get to a point where you're like, you know what, I think let me just accept my life the way it is. But it's something that I've started relooking and reconsidering also as I get older. Like,
and
maybe
your
I'd
partner?
like a mini me. Sorry?
Your partner?
I think he would be keen to have kids, so it's something that we're talking about.
It's something that you're talking about. Yeah. You know, Dr. Anesia Ziki, you've experienced couples when they come to you and talk about subfertility. How do you handle such conversations? I know you're a doctor, but also you're a mom. How do you handle conversations like that with people who, like her, she had so many miscarriages and now she will eventually try for a baby, but what goes on and how do you handle it?
You know, it's important when a woman comes who has had pregnancy losses to really take into account her emotional state, the psychosocial trauma that she has had from one loss or from not having a pregnancy at all. So it's important to treat the women with empathy. You have to really try and fit into their shoes to see and understand how they're feeling. So for me, a good part of the consultation is spent on psychological health because it's important. One, if a woman is stressed, remember, it also affects many other things, you know, so we have to be empathetic. And when it's not enough, I've had to refer to appropriate psychologists for better care, because sometimes in an obstetrician's office you spend 45 minutes and sometimes it doesn't address all of your issues. So this kind of problem needs a multidisciplinary team approach where we take into account the psychologists to try and address women's health. And it's also important to make sure that sometimes people get stuck on one cause, to investigate many causes, because sometimes these causes are so linked. You might think it's just the fibroid, yet there are other things that could be contributing to the subfertility.
And what other things could these be? Curiously asking, you know.
Okay, for example, if a woman has had 3 consecutive losses, that points you to different diagnoses altogether. You have to consider antiphospholipid syndrome. It's a neglected condition in women, but that does lead to recurrent pregnancy loss. So I'm saying we have to approach these women in a holistic manner to try and get their problem sorted. Yeah.
You know, Haji, the lived realities are in where there is no children in marriages, they tend to get terminated, strained, or actually come to an end. And I know your organization handles women and mostly women, right? Correct? In these situations. So when the realities of, well, she says it's called subfertility because eventually they can have children, but to them the reality is that I cannot have children. What is it that you do for them at Family of Hope that they stay hopeful and say, you know what, if this is my fate, then let it be?
So Family of Hope actually started as a support group with just women who'd gone through loss. And I was actually introduced to one of the founders after my second loss. Okay. And in that space, I thought, I was like, this is only happening to me. Okay. And it was very lonely because I didn't have anyone else that I could tell what I was feeling. And because of the way we're socialized, it's like, you know, pull yourself together, it'll be okay, you can try again and everything. And like I said, my second loss, I actually had to have surgery to clean out my room and everything because the doctor actually thought I had an ectopic pregnancy. Okay. The scan was revealing an empty uterus, but the blood test was saying I was pregnant. Right. So he was really worried and we had to go into theatre. So it was very difficult because like I'm recovering from the loss, I'm recovering from surgery. It was very difficult. But then when I was introduced to Cynthia, it was such a relief that, okay, there's someone else who has actually walked this road and she's gone on to have children. So the support group is basically there to just care, to just give you a listening ear. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. If you want to speak, we're there to listen with no judgment. It's a safe space, so what happens in the group stays in the group. It's not going to be spread in the community or in the neighborhood and talking about you. And then the other ladies then come through and also share their journey to say, you know what, this happened to me. I had a twin pregnancy that I lost, but I now have 2 children. And it's those stories that then bring hope. Sometimes we say, oh, why don't you change doctors and try this doctor, he was great or she was great. We change medical personnel and we just give each other advice and tips, but most importantly, we pray a lot.
And we will come back after the break having the conversation about prayer and faith concerning having a family lived reality of a childless marriage. We'll be right back.
Generally, society has a tendency of shying away from tackling matters that disrupt the status quo. Instead, such discussions are either avoided. As a result, attitudes are created and truth reinvented. On this platform, we dare to venture into those territories. This is Issues-Pane Nyaya.
It's been discovered that both men and women do suffer from social effects of childlessness. While, the desire to be a biological parent in our society encourages childbearing, usually results in so many unhealthy practices because we are so desperate and we'll reach out for anything. And I know Rudo, if she were here, she would have given us the lived realities of what she had to go through, Achiti, like she had termed Ngoma in quotes. But Dr. Ziki, I want to come to you and have this conversation about faith and science. Is there a correlation between faith and science in terms of subfertility?
My take on it is faith and spiritual matters keep hope alive in women.
Okay.
So they're an important aspect in managing a woman. At the same time, I do encourage women to seek medical care and not only base their care or their ability to have children on spiritual healers only, because I believe in science. So I want a scientific reason. I want to investigate and to apply the knowledge that I know on why a woman is having issues. But I believe, faith is an important part. It keeps the hope alive in a woman. And these are women who need a lot of hope and a lot of encouragement. So that aspect, you can't take it away from people.
You can't take it away. Is that why you guys pray a lot? And in your prayers, have there been miracles, signs and wonders while you prayed before?
Yes, they have. Many women do testify and have been testifying, and we are looking to hear more testimonies. And sometimes it's not just about praying for a particular miracle, which is a baby, of course, but praying for strength, and delving deeper, like deepening our faith and our Christian walk. So at the moment, I'm actually sharing a devotional on infertility. So it's called a Seed of Hope. Subfertility, I beg your pardon, and it's God's promises for fertility, and we're going through the Bible, so it's a 56-day devotional.
But doesn't that also bring a lot of distort? Doesn't a person get distorted because you're reminding them and affirming them what the Bible says about fertility, but here they are not fertile? How do you balance the two?
Well, reactions are different. I can't prescribe how each person will react, but the idea is to bring hope. That's our mandate. We want to raise awareness, but also we want to bring hope.
Doesn't it make them feel inadequate or unworthy to say, God says you shall be fruitful and you multiply, and here I am fruitless and not multiplying, and actually subtracting? Like, that's what I just want to understand. For you, for example, I know you walk with them, like you're saying, you're the one giving devotion.
Yeah.
Do you believe what you're teaching? Because if I then, after all your devotion and all your teaching, I still don't have a child, what does that do to me? As me and my faith and my relationship with God, that God doesn't love me?
No, not at all. But your questions are valid, and I think everyone has gone through that period of questioning God, their faith. Will it happen? What is God's will for my life? And those are all very valid questions, and we do go through those things. But still, we go back to the word that still comforts us, that still encourages us. So it's more of waiting for God's time and believing that He will fulfill His promises.
So is it possible that it is God's choice for someone not to have a child?
I don't know. So recently I came across a story about Dolly Parton, and I don't know that she didn't have children.
Okay.
I learned that recently. But she has done so much work with children, protecting children, orphans, etc. And so sometimes our direction is a bit different. I wouldn't have thought that I'll be, talking about it, because if you told me 10 years ago this is what I'll be doing, I'll be like, because I never thought that I would encounter, these things. So sometimes it's a path that we must walk, and the Bible tells us that we are comforted in order to comfort others.
You're such a politician. You run away from the question.
I am not a politician.
You're running away from the question. I just, it was simple, but let me talk to science, because faith is clearly, on its own part. So are there ways of increasing somebody, like giving them hope scientifically to move from subfertility to actual fertility?
So as I've said, there are different causes of subfertility. They're different for every woman, and there may be multiple causes in one woman. But there are general things that women can do to try and increase their chances of success.
Okay.
For example, a lifestyle modification. If a woman smokes, we would encourage her to stop smoking, to drink less alcohol or no alcohol at all, to try and increase the chances of fertility, and also such things as maintaining an ideal body weight. Because sometimes when you're underweight or overweight, it can lead to issues with subfertility. So there are general measures that women can take. Also, remember I said tubal blockage can lead to subfertility.
Yes.
So, for example, I'd encourage correct, consistent use of condoms to prevent sexually transmitted infections, because this is what causes tubal blockage sometimes. So yes, there are lifestyle modifications that one can actually practice to try and increase the chances of success.
So, out of curiosity, and this just came into my head, what causes cysts and fibroids?
Oh, that's a complex issue. So for most of the fibroids are very common, and sometimes they happen. There are risk factors. For example, if there's a family history of fibroids, you find that you may get them, or just a woman who is aging. As a woman ages, the womb tends to get fibroids, especially women with low fertility or with no babies.
Look at how she's looking at me like
they tend to get
womb aging.
They tend to get fibroids. So sometimes but remember that they're just tumors. They're not cancer. They're just growths of the womb which come about sometimes because of I don't want to use the word mutations, but because of
mutation sounds cool, right?
Okay, so there are some genetic things that can lead to fibroids in women. Yeah.
So, having said that, have you ever encountered surrogates in your office? Because I don't think Zimbabweans are ready for the phenomenon, and I don't know if we'll talk to you, Hajri, but are there people who actually come and say, this is Tendai, she is my surrogate?
I'm happy you brought that up, because it's an important answer to how women can be helped. And it's not just about, I can't have a baby. I think people have to be a bit open-minded and try to see, okay, does surrogacy work for me? It's not an easily acceptable thing, but surrogacy, I've not encountered surrogacy, but I've encountered women who want to give up their children as soon as they're born. And So adoption is another option for women with subfertility. So for me, yes, I'm happy you brought that up. There are options for women with subfertility. But you've
never encountered a surrogate?
No, I've not encountered it. But when I was in South Africa, yes, there were surrogates.
Oh my God, I can't wait for that to happen in this country. Would you consider to get a surrogate or to adopt, Haji?
So we're actually discussing the issue of adoption versus surrogacy, or going the sperm donor route yesterday on the group. And the leaning is more towards having one's own biological child. And it's interesting you bring up the issue of surrogacy, because my partner once suggested it, like, if you're not comfortable to carry a pregnancy to full term, let's consider this. But
because it is your egg and his sperm, so they've just got a healthy womb and they're carrying it for you.
But the thing is, you'll find that in Zim at the moment, we actually don't have the legal framework for it. So surrogacy is being done, but in very private arrangements. So eventually our law needs to catch up with that. Whereas in South Africa, they actually have a complete law for it. You cannot pay a surrogate in South Africa. Your responsibility is for medical bills and covering their loss of income and things like that. And they have to do it for, I think they're called altruistic reasons, for the that love to want to help someone else. It cannot be a business transaction.
Then I'm going to the US transacting.
So, but you'll find that even with the issue of adoption, it's not something that I think, increasingly people are becoming open to adoption, but you'll find not everyone is open to it. I have a friend who, for medical reasons, had to have a hysterectomy, so she cannot have children. And her mom just said, look, I cannot accept an adopted child because that child doesn't have my blood running in them. So it's not just about me wanting to adopt a child, but my extended family, are they going to embrace this child as part of their kin and kith? And you find with us, not so much.
You do know, Dr. Ziggy, that the health system in this country, does it support all this that we're talking about? Because we sound fancy and expensive, and I don't know if I can even afford to come and see. No, I can. I'll just call in a high school favor. But what is our medical health system saying about this phenomenon? Because we can't keep ignoring it.
Okay, so I think we need to establish fertility centers in our public hospitals, because this is not an illness for the rich or for those with medical aids that will cover the cost of private care. So certainly we need to upgrade, we need to furnish our hospitals to be able to offer such services to women. And right now we are lagging behind. We cannot offer IVF in public right now. We cannot offer other methods for women to fall pregnant. They're fancy methods. We know about them, but we've not set up structures to help women yet. So there's a gap there.
We're definitely coming back, because we know giving birth is a national service and we demand good health care. We'll be right back. Subfertility is actually a human rights issue, and there is need to empower both men and women to have access to information, to educate themselves, health facilities, as well as changing the mindset, especially you, Haji. Like you have the job to teach women that adoption and surrogacy is equal. How's that? I mean, something, because blood is defined by what? By what is there different? Let's ask science. All right.
She's right. We can't just practice science. We can't. A woman needs to remember the issue here. It's not just about any baby for most women. They want their baby. But I feel with education, with proper, when people are aware of options that are available to them, when they're easily available, then we can talk to women about adoption. If we make adoption easy, if we make surrogacy easy, then they become acceptable to people.
You look after Vazukuru, yes. Is that not adoption in its fancy word?
But remember, when I look after them, it's legally, they're still not mine. So there are times where legal issues matter. So I believe in adoption. I'm for adoption. I think there are many women, many children in need. I think this can be a win-win situation, but it takes people getting used to the idea, people getting taught about what does it actually entail, and how can we get around the legal aspects affecting it. How can we bring in our parents?
Because blood is only type O, type A, type, you know what I mean?
Yes, but my mother needs to buy into it with me, unfortunately.
No, we are the mothers of tomorrow, I guess. We have to just let the old generation go. And because what I'm thinking is, in our culture, muchivanu chedu isusu, we already do adopt. Tunotora muzukuru, tunotora mwana weko sisi wako, like isusu kumba kwedu hakuna vakoma, like mwana weko bamkuru kan mwana, it's all vakoma. It's all mningina or mzukuru. Or why is that hard for them? Kuti, alright, tombotu mzukuru wako, right? Can't look after their child. Can't you take them?
Yes, I can take them, but the drawback with that is it comes with an emotional cost. And if you recall, Mrs. Maponga raised it last week, and she's like, I have all these kids that I've raised, that I've looked after, but when they get to the certain age, they turn their back on me, and they're like, now I'm going to my mom. So you'll find that with adoption within the family, it does get a bit messy, because those children will always identify with their biological parents. And even with children that are adopted, a number of them want to know where they come from. Who are my biological parents?
But you'll surely you can have this conversation about where they came from. Just like I'm curious right now with my biological father and biological mother. I'm curious where I came from, because I really don't think I came from those two. I think I'm alien. I'm just saying. But don't you think the socialization, I think that white notion of where you're coming from or whatever, maybe the adoption you're taking just any child, but a child that adoption it's passed on. So why are we not open to that, to say even if your aunt dies today, wotoenda kurufu pano sarapa vanoto volunteer kuti ini ndaredi kuva mai ndite sarapa vana.
I can do that and provide a great life for those children, but there will come a point where those children will demand to go back to where they came from. Maybe their father hasn't been part of their life in the 10, 20 years that I've raised them. They will leave me and say, Tuguno chaga baba vedu, you know.
But kids will leave eventually.
Kids will leave eventually. But what I'm saying is the emotional fallout is quite significant, because even but and if you're not open about these adoption issues, to say to no, I adopted you, the fallout is really, really bad. We have a lady who shared on the group, her aunt adopted, her sister died, and she adopted this baby. She was 3 years old, took her to Canada, gave her the best of the life, but she's turned around and said, but you are not my mother.
But did she
and this is her mother's twin.
Did she tell her?
I'm not sure if she told her. I think she wasn't told.
Exactly. Then it's on her. Come on. And it's, sorry.
No, but sometimes, do I have to tell you? What does it change? If I've adopted you, I've raised you as my child, I've given you every advantage. as my child.
To take care of the curiosity. I feel like I'm now being interviewed. To take care of that curiosity. Because she then did find out, because someone out there is waiting to tell this child that is not your biological mother.
This is a challenge we have with adopting within the family.
Right.
And adopting outside the family, you raise the issue of mutupo, because most of these children are abandoned. So we can't even trace their family tree. And then for those of us who believe in my ancestors,
I promise you, Hazu should swap seats. I mean, this is like, you know, Dr. Nesia Ziki, please forgive me. I went to school with Dr. Ziki, so I went default to calling her by her name. So, is this what you go through in your office? I just want to know, is this what you go through in your office? To have such passionate Hajines who are out there and mad at you that I want to have my baby and this is what is going to happen.
Yes, it does take a lot of counseling. For example, women, sometimes if you suggest adoption to them, they're outright, it's a no. It's better when they're arguing like this. Sometimes it's a no, thank you, and I'm out of here. I'm out to look for other answers. But no, it's not as readily acceptable as you think.
It's not readily. I think I'm just woke. Because honestly, my son, I also my son, this is the 4th year. He's out there with his stepmom. And are you saying Tawanda one day is just going to wake up and say, he
will.
Nah, that is a lie.
Soko, I was a stepmom for about 3 years when I was married. I was a stepmom. They don't forget their mothers. It doesn't matter what you do.
No, I'm not saying he's forgotten about me.
No, it's not that. But the thing is, there will come a point when he is of age and of means, and he will come back and look for you. And you will have a lot of questions to answer.
I will. Sha, you had to go for a better life. I feel like, I'm not ready for this. But you see, ladies, what I'm very happy about is it's a very hard topic, but we are getting to laugh and talk about it because sometimes when we break it down to make it lighter, then can we digest it for other people out there to say, listen, it's not that deep really, because this is what is there. And especially when you attach faith, because even in the Bible, there was so much adoption. There was so much adoption in the Bible because God also believed in the bloodline. And worse, if you're a Christian, I'm not, but if you're a Christian, it may someone the same bloodline of Jesus. So unless Uri Sus Manjana Soko, who'll be like, you know what, where is the Soko, is this, where is the Mkanya in this or the situation? But outside that, and now we want to come to a conclusion about how best you gave us the natural ways of saying, so what are the alternative? In vitro, is it what it's called?
In vitro,
okay.
Yes, so women can have assisted reproductive techniques where they actually can have a sperm donation for men without sperm.
Is it there in this country?
Yes, it is. We do offer it in private, where they can
and it's not there in public?
In the public sector, not yet.
Okay.
Yes. So we can have egg donation from the woman, or we can have surrogacy that we're talking about. There's adoption. And another thing that we almost always neglect when we're talking about subfertility issues is women and men coming to terms that with this is our life, we are childless and we choose to be happy and we choose to accept that this is us. We don't need a child. Because sometimes you don't actually need children for you to have a happy home. When both partners can accept that, that's another option that's available to them.
Do you agree, Haji?
I agree 100%. And sometimes couples actually choose deliberately not to have children. And this is something that I think we're seeing an increasing phenomena in, where couples choose to be child-free, to say, I want to focus on my career, or I don't have the parental instinct, or I just don't want to lose my figure. The rigors
I lost my figure. I just don't. I think I'm a better aunt.
So
you know what I mean?
We've got those couples, those who choose to be child-free, and those who accept that this is who we are. This is us. It will just be the two of us, and we'll be the fabulous aunt and uncle in the family, and they get to go on exotic holidays and have fun.
Personally, you want a child?
I'm on the fence, Soko.
Why? Let's talk about this fence. I do have like 5 minutes, and I can sit on the fence with you.
I oscillate between wanting to have a child and then checking reality to say, the age. I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30.
Right.
Are the eggs still viable? Can we still do this?
Right.
And there's also that element of accepting, see, this is where it's at.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm on the fence. I will go either way. I'm not. I've gotten past a point where it's not going to be a train smash if I don't have children.
Or a train smash if you have one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you would love to have one.
I would.
Or not have one. That's the fence we are on. Now I'm just saying we are on the fence. And
at least I get me into trouble. My partner's watching this.
Well, partner, we love you. We are just on the fence. You know, you make a miracle work. And Dr. Nyaya, well, as we conclude, what do you want women out there to know as a gynecologist concerning subfertility and hope or fence?
Okay, so I want women to know that help is available for them. Medical help, spiritual help is available for those who do not have any children. Subfertility is an issue that affects women. 1 out of every 7 women suffers from subfertility. So it's a common thing, and that they're not alone, and that medical services are there to help. And it's also important to know, in as much as we want to encourage hope, there's that percentage where we'll never really know why they cannot conceive. There's always that. So in as much as we don't have the answers, I feel women should be investigated thoroughly. Women should have the best possible care, and also leave that gap for sometimes medicine and spiritual things. There are no answers sometimes.
Like there's no answer.
Sometimes for women, we can't reach a diagnosis as to what's wrong. Why can't they have babies? We do all tests. They're all okay. But certain women fail to fall pregnant. So that's for the woman who's been trying for 15 years. No.
I'm just saying, you can't explain it with science. Then faith takes over, and then faith, I don't even know. And what do you have to say, Haji, as a conclusion?
We are here to support. We're here to walk with you. Whatever the challenge is, we will not have the answers, but we're here to listen. We're not here to judge. And we will help wherever we can.
Thank you so much. Well, I really would like to thank our guests for taking time out to come here on Issues-Pane Nyaya, Dr. Nyaya and Hajine, and of course, Story Arudo that we shared last week. But while childless partners may be desperate to have children or on the fence, the situation usually is worsened by the pressure of the family. It's therefore important for those who are affected to find coping mechanisms, find therapy, to explore with other people, other community groups, or doctors within your sphere of influence, or of course your wallet. There's also need for responsible authorities to take counseling services and the reproductive health system in this country to be bettered, so that people will demystify all these beliefs they have associated with subfertility, and those that are subfertile can be accepted into the society and find other options of how to deal with this situation. Because childless couples are also encouraged to embrace adoption, surrogacy. There's so many options out there, and it presents an opportunity for you to experience joy as a parent, regardless of how you get your child. Of course, no kidnapping involved. They all have happened to some of us, someone we know, someone we care about. But Issues-Pane Nyaya brings the story closer to home and makes sure you experience it for yourself. So thank you for your comments and your views, and do keep them coming, and do follow us on Zim Papers Television Network, follow our page, and of course share with your friends. From me, Sokostina, and Siposihle Ndlovu on sign language, thank you so much for joining us on Issues-Pane Nyaya. We'll see you again next week.